as ESPN's NFL reporter Sal Paolantonio enters the conversation. Sal, I don't even know where we start. I don't know where to begin with all this stuff. It seems like people are coming out of the woodworks to take their shot at Chip Kelly. So I will give the floor to you, sir, to think, where do you believe the beginning of this conversation should go?
Hey, Mike, let me start by wishing you and your family happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too, and all the listeners out there. Sal, this has not been a great birthday for Chip Kelly, has it?
No, it certainly has not. You know, they just got on the road or shortly getting taken off for Detroit. And this game is no longer a must-win game. The schedule is no longer really a competitive schedule. Now, the only thing that the Eagles are competing against is themselves. Now, let me explain. I think this team needs to compete against itself to show not only the fans and the rest of the NFL, but also each other that they know how to play the game and they know how to compete and they know how to win. Because I think after looking at that Tampa game, and I didn't look at every play, I'm not going to lie. It was too depressing. I was ashamed to say that's the team that represents Philadelphia. Because that team, it didn't roll over, but I didn't see a lot of fight in the team. I just did not. I'm not going to suggest there was a lack of effort. I'm just going to suggest there was just there was no fight in the team. And being in the locker room yesterday all day, I didn't get a sense that there was a lot of energy, enthusiasm, or positive atmosphere around the team. I thought it was just the opposite. I thought there was a sense of lethargy and a sense of doom and an inevitability about where this season is going. So when that happens, and these are professionals, and they want to keep their jobs in 2016, they need to start showing up on film. And that's, I think, is important for tomorrow. They need to show up tomorrow as a football team, and each individual player has to be accountable. And you know what's interesting, Mike? And I'll finish this with this comment. I learned that Chip Kelly, after the game on Sunday, told each and every player the same exact thing. He said it individually and said it in the group. He said it's time for everybody in this locker room to look at themselves in the mirror and decide whether or not they want to play this game.
Well, some of the things, Sal, and that's, if he did say that, what's happened in the last couple of days is kind of interesting because let's start with... He
did say it. A number of players told me that after the game, he said to the team in a team meeting, you got to look yourself in the mirror.
And they do. I mean, as Anthony Beck was just on with us, he said, look, when I watched the tape of that team, they got a player problem. He said drop passes, missing blocks, bad tackling. So this isn't just on the coaching. They don't have a lot of good players right now. But what do you make, Sal? First off, yesterday, obviously, Adam Schefter's comments, which got taken out of context. But it's his belief that, look, it's not going well there right now. The fans are tired. He's tired. It might be best off for them to split. Is that becoming more sentiment around the league that maybe that's the best way for this to end up?
Well, I don't really want to comment on what Adam Schefter said, and I'll tell you why. Mm-hmm. Because it has been misquoted and misinterpreted, and I'd rather just talk about what I know. Yeah. And what I know, Mike, and what I've been reporting all along is that, this team at the end of the year, they've got to reconnect. Lurie has to sit down with Chip Kelly, and he has to ask himself whether or not this decision to give Chip Kelly all of the power was the right one. Mm-hmm. And, Lurie's a very patient guy, right? Over the years, Jeffrey Lurie, to a fault, has kept his coach in place, even in the face of overwhelming evidence that there needed to be a replacement. I don't care if you want to talk about Ray Rhodes. Ray Rhodes had a 5-win season. Lurie brought him back. Ray Rhodes wound up with a 3-win season and was fired. Andy Reid stuck around for 14 years. Probably 2 or 3 years too much. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So Lurie's patient to a fault. And he made this decision to give Kelly all of this power. If Kelly doesn't want to leave, if Kelly doesn't have a job lined up, and right now I believe he wants to stay, and I don't think he has a job lined up, I don't think Lurie is going to force him out. I really don't. It's never, ever been his mode. He never, his MO. Never.
Sal Paolantonio, ESPN NFL reporter, here on a Sal Pal Friday edition on a Wednesday, as there was so much that happened. Sal was kind enough to change to go to Wednesday here. I'll ask you, Sal, then.
Mike, let me go through a couple of things that I think are the problem with this team right now as we speak, in the wake of this absolute embarrassment, and that's what it was.
Yeah.
All over the Delaware Valley, I think people have an overwhelming feeling of disgust and shame over that game. There's a sense of embarrassment. This is a team that has a rich history of tough defense. You feared coming into Philadelphia. You did not want to play this team. I don't care if it was Chuck Bednarik knocking out Frank Gifford, Reggie White, Jerome Brown, Mike Golick, Eric Allen, Brian Dawkins, go down the list, Wes Hopkins, all those great defensive players, Byron Evans. You did not want to play the Eagles. The Eagles may not have the most talent. They may not have been a team that you thought you could beat, but you knew you were in for a physical fight. You knew you were in for a fight. And the problem is that this team does not have enough linebackers. No other team has their top 4 tacklers as defensive backs. The Eagles' top 4 tacklers on this team are defensive backs. They're the only team in the league that can say that.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that is unbelievable.
It's crazy.
It is. The Eagles have 22 drops. That ranks 31st in the league. Only the Texans have more with 26. Through 10 games last year, they had 14 drops. They got 22 this year. Eagles' total penalties, 96.
Wow.
That's 29th in the league. Through 10 games last year, they had 83. So, I mean, the evidence is overwhelming that this team is shorthanded at important positions and not playing disciplined football. And I'm just going to say it. I mean, it's almost like they're mailing it in. When you drop that many passes, that's a suggestion of a lack of focus. And when you have that lack of focus all over the team, penalties, drops, your linebackers are not tackling anybody. You have a coaching staff that, to me, is not inspiring a better effort. I think when you look at, don't you agree with that?
I absolutely do. And Sal, the follow-up I would ask you is, if Kelly didn't get the keys to the car, would it be as ugly right now? You've been covering this team virtually your entire career. Has it ever, got this bad this soon with where it was? The highs to this where they've gotten, if he's not the GM, is it as bad as it is right now?
No, I don't think it is. I've never seen it this bad. I mean, the 2 worst losses that I ever witnessed at Lincoln Financial Field and Veterans Stadium were the 2 NFC Championship game losses, one to the Bucs and one to the Panthers. Back-to-back losses in 2 different stadiums. After those 2 losses, one, after the Bucs, the closed Veterans Stadium, when I went outside to the satellite truck to do post-game stuff, there was an eerie silence. There was snow on the ground, and it was like you were walking on the moon. You could hear the sound of your own footprints. That's how stunned people were. After the loss to the Panthers, people were coming up to me, literally, Mike, and saying, "Help us, Sal. What do we do? How do we get to the Super Bowl?" People were just like in a state of shock. literally, like they had just seen, a bad horror movie. After this particular game, I wasn't at Lincoln Financial Field, but I live in South Jersey. The guy who cuts my lawn is an Eagles fan. The guy who cuts my hair is an Eagles fan. My UPS driver is. The guy who delivers my mail. Everybody in my neighborhood is so disgusted. They don't even want to have anything to do with this team. So there's a difference in how people feel. And I've gone through the spectrum of emotions in Philadelphia with all those losses in the Andy Reid era, to all those disappointments in the Kotite era, to all the missed opportunities of the Buddy Ryan and the Ray Rhodes era. This feels different because of the way the fans have reacted. And I think most of that has to do with the fact that Chip Kelly has not warmed up to this fan base. I think that's very important.
Yes.
I think the way he conducts his press conferences are so condescending that people don't have a feeling of affinity for the guy where they want to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I think they've abandoned ship so quickly as to be disgusted.
That's a good point, and I think you're right on the money with that, because I think Andy held people off. I don't know that people loved Andy's press conferences. They were, they thought sometimes that he was very arrogant and he wouldn't give things up, but he was winning, so you couldn't say much. And at the end, it got ugly.
When he went to a Super Bowl, but Andy was sort of like, in many ways to people, the lovable uncle, right? And Ray, the thing about Ray Rhodes that people loved about Ray Rhodes is, he'd been around the block. Nobody really warmed up to Kotite, but, people, that was after Buddy Ryan, so the contrast was so stark. But I think with Chip is he never wanted to connect. And so he kept everybody at arm's length, media, fans, whatever. So I just think because of that, because people have no emotional investment in Chip, they have already decided to abandon ship on him, and they've done it faster than I've ever seen any coach in Philadelphia lose the fan base. He's lost the fan base, lost it. It's over. Did you see the Philadelphia.com, Philly.com poll that was running, is running?
Yep.
Yeah. The latest is Chip Kelly's job safe. It's now up to 86% no.
That's unbelievable. And you know what's interesting about that, as you mentioned, this is a town that's willing to give you second chances and give you some chances here. As you just mentioned, the fan base is completely turned on him. Sal, I do want to get your opinions, because there was that NJ.com report today that basically an agent came out and said he's lost it. He's lost this locker room. Guys who are hurt, they could play, they won't play. I mean, whether that's accurate or not, that's pretty damning stuff if that's accurate.
Well, who wrote that story?
That was a Matt Lombardo, I believe, from NJ.com.
Okay, well, Matt's a good young reporter.
Yeah.
So I know Matt. He's a good young reporter, and if he's got an agent saying that on background, that's a good report. So to me, that's just another brick taken out of the wall here.
Well, can I read it to you real fast? Here's the crux of it, Sal.
Yeah, I read it.
Oh,
I read
okay.
I absolutely read it. I read it on Bleacher.com, Bleacher Report.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah, and ESPN is using it on their hot list. So if ESPN is using it on their hot list, they feel like they've vetted it and it's a legitimate story, because the news editors in Bristol, Connecticut have vetted it. So I saw it on ESPN's hot list. So they feel like it is legitimate. And if they feel like it's legitimate, then it's legitimate to me.
Sure.
So and I know Matt. He's a good, young, hardworking, earnest reporter, and he's not going to put something out that's not legitimate. So I lend legitimacy to it. But what I think it suggests is it's just another example of stuff coming out of Novacare that suggests that all is not right. But you really didn't have to have that. All you needed to know, all you needed to see was DeMarco Murray sliding after he got the first down instead of finishing the run. Did you see that?
Yep, on that right towards the sideline there, third down.
It was a Dolphin game, correct?
Yep, and Seth Joyner the other night gave it to him for it. It was and Shermer was asked about it, and he said, well, it's been addressed. We'd like to see our backs finish their runs.
I mean, that even for Shermer to say that was significant. Mm-hmm. That's my point.
Yeah.
My point is that Shermer could have said anything, but he said it was addressed. So apparently, it was something that came up behind closed doors in the offensive meeting room. I'm sure that Deuce Staley, the running backs coach, and nobody took more punishment or gave out more punishment than Deuce Staley in an Eagles uniform. I'm sure that he was quite embarrassed by what took place, by what transpired, and I'm sure it was Staley who addressed it with DeMarco Murray. Shermer saying it was addressed is significant, don't you think?
I do. I when he brought that up yesterday, I kind of opened my eyes a little bit and said, "Boy, if they watch the tape."
There's another example. I think that, to me, is a bigger example that all is not well in NovaCare. But Lombardo's story is obviously another example. And what Adam Schefter reported, look, listen, nobody talks to more people around the league than Adam Schefter. Nobody. He is the creme de la creme of reporters covering the league. So for Schefter to even suggest that there is dissension/discontent or a disconnect that bears watching, which I think is the essence of what he reported. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And it was basically him saying, look, he's had it, they've had it. It looks like it's better off if they just split.
Well, I think the important thing, though, Mike, is to focus on what he really meant. What he really meant was that there's a disconnect, and that disconnect bears monitoring going forward. And that, to me, is significant.
And I think, Sal, I'll see if you agree, tomorrow will be a great indicator of
no question
how accurate a lot of this stuff has been. And I'm not saying that this stuff's inaccurate.
No
yep.
No question. You're absolutely right, Mike. You are totally right. Listen, it's the nationally televised game, the first one on Thanksgiving Day in Detroit. This team had better show up, and it's going to be in the crosshairs. Those pregame shows, the Eagles are going to be in. Mike, I'm not even covering the game in Detroit, and Mike asked me to be on their show tomorrow because it's topic number one.
Wow.
So, yeah. I mean, it's going to be in the crosshairs. The Eagles, the team, Chip Kelly, will be in the crosshairs. People will be watching for no other reason but to see if there's effort, if there is discipline, because when you have that many drops, and I just gave you the numbers, and when your linebackers are not making tacklers, and I just told you, the Eagles are the only team in the league where all four top tacklers are defensive backs. I don't know if that's a first in team history, but it's got to be, which is astounding when you think about it. And that tells you about how his team was put together. You rely on D'Amico Ryans, coming back from an Achilles injury. He's 30-something years old. You rely on Kiko Alonso, who couldn't stay on the field. You trade for him. You have to be bailed out by a rookie, Jordan Hicks. He gets hurt because there's so much burden on him, so much pressure on him, and he gets hurt in his rookie season, and you lose him. I mean, it's just the general manager of this team, in my opinion, has overlooked so many important elements of this team and made so many gambles regarding players with injury, Ryan Matthews, Sam Bradford, Kiko Alonso. The decision not to bring back Jeremy Maclin and go with Nelson Aguilar as a replacement backfired, and then not drafting an offensive lineman. Listen, Mike, not to get ahead of ourselves, but this team next year in the first round will absolutely have to draft a left tackle.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I was thinking that on my drive in, and I know you got to go, Sal. I was thinking about it on my drive into work today that, man, draft season is going to be really boring because they need to take an offensive lineman. So it's not going to be an exciting draft conversation this year because if they don't take an offensive lineman, they're in big-time trouble. Sal, what time tomorrow on Mike and Mike?
9:30 a.m.
Okay, 9:30 right here on 97.3. More from Sal. That postal worker who's an Eagles fan, he should have something nice Thanksgiving gift for you on the way. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, Sal. And we'll see tomorrow what happens.
All right, Mike. Happy Thanksgiving, and I will talk to you next week.